America is in the middle of an industrial comeback, but the entrepreneurs trying to lead it are hitting a wall. Building physical technology, or hard tech, like hardware, manufacturing tools, real industry solutions, costs more, it takes longer, and gets funded far less than a software startup. And that funding gap is leaving some of the country's most promising founders behind. If hard tech stops, the consequences are devastating. We don't just lose new jobs and energy security, America loses its spot as a global leader. In this video, we'll get to know one of Rockefeller Foundation's latest grantees, mHUB, the nation's largest independent hard tech innovation center, and a $1 million investment designed to change everything for founders building the next generation of American industry. This is what it looks like when philanthropy meets the physical economy, and what it means for the future of innovation in the United States. Located on the west side of Chicago is mHUB, the first and only institution of its kind.
Come on in.
At mHUB, founders have everything they need in one place, from prototyping labs to capital for funding, and pretty much every machine you can think of.
We have a full laser cutting, 3D printing, CNC. We also have wet labs around here, as well as microfabrication space, and then a dedicated electronics and testing lab. We have a full paint room back there. This is called a thermoplastic former. I'm sure you've seen Star Wars. All the Star Wars masks are made on exactly this type of machine. In all, we have 11 labs today. We'll have a 12th one come online later this month. That will be our new quantum lab. So you'll have to forgive the construction.
What they're building inside these labs will fix some of the biggest problems on Earth. And we're going to show you how they're doing it.
When you walk the floor, you see the ideas coming to life. You see the products, the iteration. Nothing is made overnight.
Since its founding in 2016, mHUB has had a huge impact in domestic manufacturing, which is what we want for a healthy economy and local job creation. And the stats speak for themselves, with the mHUB community launching over 1,800 products, hiring more than 7,200 employees, while raising $2.3 billion in capital and generating $2.25 billion in revenue.
We have some of the best research labs and institutions in this country, but once you graduate, you lose access to them. And once you lose access, you can't continue to advance your business, your intellectual property. And it's created what they call this translational gap, or the valley of death. mHUB is positioned right in that valley of death to make sure that they still have a place to come and innovate, connect with innovators, connect with industry, learn how to run a business, and ultimately scale out of here.
mHUB is open to all kinds of hard tech businesses, but focuses on clean energy solutions, advanced manufacturing, and medtech, both huge areas of growth and development. But everyone is doing something a bit different and a lot complicated.
So I'm Saeed Al-Hallaj. I'm the founder and CEO of Net Energy, which is a thermal energy storage company here at mHUB. It's the coolest place in Chicago. So we're going to show you the components of what makes a thermal battery, which we use for cooling data centers, for HVAC, for heat pumps. And we're just going to show you a peek inside what's in our thermal batteries and what's the innovation part, what is the engineering innovation in it, what's the material innovation, and how we put it together to deliver what I call the highest power cooling technology in the world today. And I'm going to make that claim, and you can prove me right.
Net Energy is a thermal battery and energy storage startup at mHUB.
mHUB is amazing. It's a very unique space.
Yana is Net Energy's lead research chemist. She builds the entire battery pretty much right here at mHUB.
So we actually make pretty much the whole product here. We literally use pretty much all of the machines here, because for the engineering part of the project, we make a lot of custom-made parts. And it's been extremely helpful to have all this.
So hard tech by nature, I would say it takes much longer time, especially if you're innovating, not just adjusting. And it's underestimated.
Because Net Energy is in the energy industry, their work can be heavily impacted by local and federal policy changes, which happens regularly. And because hardware takes so long to develop and test, this means that founders are often left in the lurch when policies change, effectively destroying their businesses.
I will tell you, your friends when you're in good times and bad times.
Mm-hmm. And the new policies change, which it happens all the time, by the way, in both ends, whether on the federal level or the local level. If you're a big Fortune 100, you actually can do that. But small companies like us, when our whole business model depends on the grants to help us get the technology in the hands of the right people and demonstrate it, which is very essential, but also the financial structure to make it feasible. Those were suspended or frozen. When that happened, it's a shock.
This is another way that mHUB helps support progress and make sure founders can continue working. When policy changes and funding fluctuates, they step in with resources to help founders stay on track, regardless of what may be changing.
We have to, sit back and think, and we had to assess whether we can sustain and can afford to stay at mHUB. And they were wonderful to us. They stepped in, they're like, what can we do for you? And for months, they worked with us, they were patient, they helped us, with a lot of things to be able to afford to stay here. And those 6 months, I will tell you, you know this, if mHUB did not step us and help us, we would be out of business.
Today, there's 310 companies in here. Some examples, Madison Scientific. This was a spin out of University of Wisconsin where they were trying to address hydrocephalus. Currently, a chronic condition that shows up in kids to late adults. And they've created like this special pressure sensor and a smart valve system to be able to measure the edema on the brain and then smartly be able to drain that instead of just having a straw in your head that drains it irregardless of how much pressure is in your brain.
It's not rocket science, but it is brain surgery. I'm Tyler Wonke. I'm a serial medtech entrepreneur, investor, and professor. And I'm the CEO of MadSci.
And I'm Mike Nagy. I'm the CTO, Chief Technology Officer here, and a co-founder as well.
Hydrocephalus is, the buildup of excess fluid and pressure in the head. If untreated, it can be lethal for kids. It affects, we think now, about 1.5 million patients in the United States, and probably over 13 million patients just in North America, Europe, and Asia. So it's way more prevalent than anyone thought it was a few years ago. One of the big issues in this space is that the current devices that are used in kids and adults fail all the time. It's the most failing implant of any medical implant out there. We spun the company out of University of Wisconsin, Madison, really, and brought it here to mHUB so that we could actually build the company and have the sort of private infrastructure that we need to develop a medical device.
The uniqueness is how interdisciplinary all these teams are. So, someone working on medical devices, they're working in a certain constraint that generally the FDA defines, right? But you can take the learnings and approaches to innovating there and bring them to energy, bring them to manufacturing. And that level of association is just key for what we try to do with our startups.
According to the National Association of Manufacturers, every time $1 is spent on manufacturing, $2.69 is added to the overall economy, over double the amount. According to the same research, every time one job is added in manufacturing, it creates 5 other jobs in other sectors. By 2033, it's projected that 3.8 million manufacturing jobs will be needed in the US. The companies coming out of mHUB are a huge part of that solution, and a lot of them will even be built right here in Chicago.
We're in 80,000 square feet today. There's 310 startups, but being 10 years old, we have companies that are producing $250 million a year in revenue and employing hundreds of people. But yet they still want to be close to this beehive of activity. Over the next 7 years, we'll deploy about $1.5 billion into building out the country's first net zero, fully sustainable industrial R&D park. With embedded in that, all these test beds. So, looking at developing a grid test bed for companies that need to deploy and demonstrate their technology works in a live but non-critical environment. This is a big gap for energy and clean energy technologies to be able to deploy that. We're also looking at building a data center test bed so that we can test emerging cooling systems, new GPUs, new advanced materials to make what is obviously one of the most transformational investments of our history, but making sure that it's done more sustainably and not consuming as much energy, not consuming as much water, and then taking the compute that we can do and pushing it further and creating higher level of performance.
I met with the Rockefeller people when they came here.
Oh, you did?
And I was part of the startups. And I feel like that is an organization actually who can help mHUB be in the position to help us because they need help too.
It is really bringing all parts of the sort of product development, the value chain around manufacturing into one facility focused on not just innovating, but innovating with purpose to create business, create commercial opportunities.
Through the ongoing support of organizations like mHUB, America's next great hard tech entrepreneurs and businesses will not only have the support they need to build the latest innovations, they're being armed with tools and learnings that will create new jobs, expand existing industries, and renew our nation's ability to innovate on a global scale.